So good afternoon, all the people in ETS class. We are giving our last lecture for the day, for the day today, and also for this theme in the unit. The unit that we're dealing with today is Unit 12. And Unit 12 deals with brain care for teachers. This unit is the last unit in our theme. Our theme relates to the science of learning. To remind everybody, we have done a theme on adolescent development, and we are now doing the broad theme of the science of learning. And in the science of learning, we have been doing the information processing model. We've been looking at theories related to cognitive load, the way that information is inputted. We've been looking at memory. We looked at the for forgetting and remembering curves, and we looked at a whole lot of strategies about how people learn best and how teachers can support learning with an understanding of how our brains work and the research that has been put in place. So we are finalizing this theme by having a look at the idea of brain care, and a lot of research has been done in the field of neuroscience and child development that relates to how our human brains function optimally. And I'm going to go through just a couple of things today in preparation for you to be able to do the next question, which is required for the next assessment task. The assessment task that you have to do for this requires you to choose an aspect of one of these issues and to discuss them related to how you can assist children and adolescents with ensuring that they are able to learn optimally. So I'm going to start with one of the crucial aspects which we often forget as teachers and even as human beings. We forget that we need to be able to function during the day and to be able to learn and to be able to make decisions. And all of that is dependent to a large extent on the quality and the quantity of sleep that the person gets. There is a lot of research being done around sleep, and we know that it is essential for optimal brain functioning and for the process of learning that people are getting quality sleep. Children and people in general consolidate the memories that they have learned during the day, gets consolidated at night in our neural networks that are making connections between things that we have learned and embedding, doing rehearsal sometimes in the unconscious mind, and doing this crucial task of consolidating, putting the memories into long-term memory. We also need adequate sleep, because if we sleep badly, we're unable to regulate our emotions during the day, and our executive functioning is impaired. So executive functioning relates to the cognitive processes that take place in the frontal lobe, And this has got to do with your ability to take initiative, your ability to see consequences of actions, your ability to figure out what you need to learn, what you need to do for the day, to plan ahead, to be able to optimally plan and function in your day. We also know that adequate sleep has a direct impact on the ability to attend, to focus attention, to concentrate on tasks. When we are sleepy and we have not had adequate sleep, it's very hard to keep attention focused on what the teacher is saying and to be able to follow instructions in the classroom and to be able to do the work, the readings, the worksheets, the science experiments, whatever tasks are required if the brain has not had adequate sleep and is tired. So we know that a lack of sleep impairs attention and concentration, decision-making, and the emotional regulation and control of our emotions. What we can do as teachers is we can encourage good sleeping habits by having communications with parents and maybe looking at what children's routines look like. Are they getting adequate time to sleep? I know that in a lot of secondary schools, children have huge demands on homework time, and are we giving so much homework and so many extramural activities that we are encroaching into children's sleeping time? So communication with schools and parents regarding what is happening sometimes in the child's routines can be a useful exercise if we are, as educators, aware that the child is not sleeping adequately. So people have done research on how many hours of sleep children need per night. And we know that younger children require many more hours of sleep than adults. If we have a look at preschoolers, sort of 3 to 5 year olds, they need about 10 to 13 hours of sleep. This includes naps that they will have during the day. School-age children in primary school, 6 to 12 year olds, need about 9 to 12 hours of sleep, depending on the child. Some children need more sleep than others. And we know that teenagers, we're talking about 13 to 18 year olds, need about 8 to 10 hours of good sleep per night. And then if we think about adults, there are some adults who will function adequately on small amounts of sleep, like 6 hours, but the general consensus is that most adults require 8 hours of sleep in order to be able to function adequately. So as teachers, what can we do? We can encourage healthy sleeping habits in the children that we are teaching, and if we are in a position to consult with parents, we can consult regarding the routines of sleeping and waking up, and one's routines should be consistent. There should be a consistent wake up and sleep time so that the body is able to stay in a pretty stable routine. And research has also shown that a lot of screen time, looking at TV and computers and cell phones, can negatively impact one's quality of sleep. And there is a lot of research on the different colors of light that are emitted from the screens that impact melatonin, which is the hormone that allows the brain to go to sleep. One should also have clear wind down routines at night. So a routine where the child is quietening down, maybe having, a bedtime story, keeping the bedroom cooler and quiet and darkening. We know that brains do not sleep well if there's too much light in the room. So there's a lot of research about what is healthy with regards to sleep habits. And sometimes teachers are called upon to assist parents and children with ensuring that these healthy habits are being attended to. A lot of research has looked at what happens when there is inadequate sleep, and these are some of the consequences of not having proper sleep at night, or interrupted sleep, sleep that is not of good quality. We know that attention and concentration are impaired. Children will have trouble following instructions that are given in the class, and they will have trouble learning the content of lessons. A lack of sleep impairs decision-making skills, reduces emotional control, and this may lead to mood swings and irritability. And all of this tends to result in reduced academic performance, particularly if the poor sleep happens over an extended period of time. A lack of sleep has also been shown to increase the impulsivity and hyperactivity type of problems that children show in classrooms. And it is also associated with a higher risk of anxiety and depression. So anxious children, very worried, depressed people do get depressed if they do not have adequate sleep, and if there are chronic times where there is not enough good quality sleep happening. Then research has also shown that a lack of quality sleep is also shown to have an impact on one's metabolism and an increase in obesity and immunity related illnesses. So if you don't sleep well, you tend to crave the sweet things, and you want to eat more unhealthy foods in an effort to kind of keep the brain awake during the day. And a lack of sleep can also result in children and people falling asleep during quiet times, sometimes during a drive in the car, or at a time where there is some quiet happening, and people might fall asleep or go into a state of half sleep at these times. So all of this has an impact on the quality of learning that takes place, and as teachers, we should be encouraging good sleeping habits and communicating with parents as much as is allowed when we can. Another aspect that we need to consider regarding brain care is this idea that we need to move. Movement and physical activity have been shown to have a very strong impact on cognitive functioning. So if we do not move enough, we are unable to keep our thinking processes active. What happens when we are physically active and moving a lot is that we have increased blood flow to the brain, and so the brain is able to, the neurons are able to function adequately. This enhances our memory, our attention, our mood, and all of that is important for teaching, for learning to take place. So as teachers, what we can do is we can incorporate little movement breaks, such as stretching and getting up and doing things in between times where we are sitting at a desk and focusing on pen and paper or computers. So research has shown that even short bursts of activity, like a little 5-minute break away from some paper-based or computer-based task, will help to refresh working memory and self-regulation, and those are directly impact the learning and memory, remembering of content that takes place. So remember, as teachers, to think about the physical movement activities that the children in your class are doing. Then another aspect of brain care, which is often overlooked, is this idea of feeling emotionally safe. We know that when your physical body is safe, that your brain can function, but we also know that people sometimes do not feel safe in a classroom. Children can be intimidated and threatened by teachers and by other children in the class. And so this idea of emotional safety is crucial for cognitive performance. If we are experiencing chronic stress, if there is some kind of trauma that has taken place, maybe in the home, we have high rates of domestic violence, we have high rates of alcohol-related violence, any of these traumatic experiences where there is a feeling of being unsafe can negatively impact your ability to remember things and the executive functioning of the brain. So as teachers, we need to create these safe, supportive classroom climates because we need to regulate students' nervous systems. And when your heart is not beating fast and you're not in this fight or flight frightened mode, the whole body works much better and is able to do much better thinking and remembering of tasks. And as teachers, what we can do is various practices. There's a thing called emotional check-ins, where every now and then we can just check in with the class, check in with students. How are they feeling? Are they feeling that they are in a safe place in order to make mistakes in your classroom? Can they do learning? Are they able to speak in your class? Are they able to answer questions? Can they put their hand up? Is it a space that is non-threatening? Another practice that aids with emotional safety is predictable routines. So when children are able to predict what is going to happen, they know the order of things in the day. They know they can predict you as the teacher. You are not you don't change your mood from day to day. You're pretty stable in your interactions with them. These allow children to have a feeling of safety with the teacher. And all of this relates to a practice called trauma-informed teaching. And that is where we are, as educators, we are thinking about the trauma that the children in front of us might be experiencing in their homes, in their communities, in other spaces, and that we consider that the trauma has an impact on our brain functioning, and so we reduce the trauma in our classrooms and keep our learners as safe as we possibly can. Another aspect of brain care relates to nutrition, and nutrition is absolutely essential for brain functioning and for the entire body to function adequately. We need consistent, good food. We need food in a range of carbohydrates and fats and proteins and adequate water, hydration, in order to function well. And a lot of research is going into the kinds of nutrients that are required in order to keep our attention, our concentration, our memory, our emotional regulation. And we know that poor nutrition has an impact on all of these cognitive functionings. So what we can do as teachers is we can advocate for healthy snacks in children's lunch boxes, and we can also advocate for healthy school meal programs. The food should be of nutritional, wholesome value so that there is not an excess of sugar, which causes glucose spikes in the bloodstream, and we do not want children to have these highs and lows that come from too much sugar in the diet. So advocating for adequate nutrition helps to build healthy brains. Another aspect that is crucial for brain care is the idea of hydration, and this is the amount of water that we consume. It is critical for brains to have adequate hydration. The brain is made up of about 75% water, and research has shown that even mild dehydration of 1 to 2% can affect the ability of the brain to keep attention and focus. It can negatively impact short-term memory. Cognitive processing speed is decreased if the brain is not hydrated well. And you've heard numerous times about emotions and mood and behavior, such as irritability and fatigue. This also gets worse if there is dehydration in the brain. Research has shown that children are more vulnerable to dehydration than adults because they tend to have higher water needs relative to their body weight. Children also don't often recognize and respond to the thirst signals that their body is giving them until the brain is already dehydrated. So often children are very active and they're doing lots of playing, and they might forget that they need to drink. So as teachers, we need to be cognizant of the idea that we need to be drinking enough water. So research has been done on the general daily water intake recommendations, and this includes water that comes from the food that you eat and the drinks that you have. And there are daily recommendations of how many liters or cups of water children should be drinking. Generally, 4 to 8-year-olds should be drinking 5 cups of water a day. 9 to 13-year-olds, 7 to 8 cups, and 14 years and older, 8 to 11 cups of water. Remember, this includes water that comes from your food, if you've got sauces, and there's water generally in most foods that we eat. And these are recommendations that you can change depending on the increases in physical activity and the weather conditions. And if children are ill, sometimes they will get fevers, and so there might be a need for an increase in hydration needs in those cases. What can we do in the classroom? We can encourage children to bring water bottles to school. We can ensure that there are hydration breaks, reminding children to take a sip of their water, especially after they have had a break or a PE session where they've done lots of activity. And so this encourages and reminds children to drink their water. And we can, as teachers, we can model drinking water. So you can also have your water bottle with you and, drink regularly. As a teacher, we should be able to recognize some of the signs of dehydration in children, and some of the issues you could look for is, for instance, dry and cracked lips, children complaining of headaches. Headaches are a sign of dehydration, but there can be all sorts of other reasons why children have headaches, but it's one of the signs. If children are constantly having trouble concentrating, they're looking irritable, they're feeling tired and cranky, we might, some of these signs might be related to dehydration. And in those cases, you could encourage them to drink more water. As teachers, we can also advocate for policies that allow water bottles on desks, and we can be cognizant that sometimes children might not drink during the day if they do not want to go to the bathroom. Children need to know that bathroom breaks are part of their daily routines, and so they need to be having adequate water. We can also, as teachers, advocate that children drink water rather than juices and sodas and energy sports drinks, because often those have got too much sugar in them, and these sugary drinks do not contribute to hydration, but sugary drinks can cause these energy fluctuations, and that can cause behavior problems in classrooms. Okay, then the last thing I want to speak about is that we know that brain care is dependent on the types of relationships that we build with the people around us. So when children have positive relationships with adults and with other children, that the architecture, the connections in the brain are strengthened, and these are literal connections with the neurons. The synaptic connections there are more of them, and they get stronger. So positive adult-child relationships are crucial, and this is particularly important in early childhood and middle childhood, because that is when all those connections of lots of brain synaptic connections are happening. And remember that we have looked at some of the mechanisms that relate to pruning away of connections that are not used. And so we want to create these positive relationships, because when people feel secure and safe, they are better able to focus, they're able to be motivated and have more resilience and do much better learning. So as teachers, we play a crucial role in consistently caring and supporting for our children to have healthy brains and healthy emotional development. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, and let me get out of here and go back to the chat and see if there are any questions. Can I remind everybody, please, that they need to go to Moodle. I will ensure after this lecture that the content is available and open for you. This lecture recording will also be shared on the on your study groups, and the recording will also be shared in the particular unit where it is where it's involved there. And you need to ensure that you are doing the assessment tasks that are required for the next assessment. So there are 4 short questions. This was the 4th question. Question number 4 relates to brain care, and the assignment on the last 4 questions is due at in a week's time. So please make sure that you contact the tutors and that you are accessing the content on Moodle in order to be able to answer the questions that are required adequately. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording there and see if there are any other questions. So thank you very much for joining me for the session today, and I hope you're all going to be taking good care of your own brains and the brains of the children that you are teaching.